Head coach Stephanie White was left absolutely speechless, witnessing Caitlin Clark and Lexie Hull's latest workout session. This unexpected training intensity has shocked the entire organization, especially coming so early in the off-season. Clark continues pushing boundaries while most players are still recovering, and Hull's surprising commitment has raised serious questions about roster spots. The footage from this workout reveals something many of us have suspected but hadn't confirmed until now. Hull is fighting for her basketball life. Let's be brutally honest here, if she hadn't heated up after the Olympic break last season, we might never have seen her in a WNBA uniform again. That post-Olympic performance literally saved her career, but now the real work begins. What's particularly notable about Hull's return is the timing. It's been barely 8 days since the unrivaled league wrapped up, and while players like Aaliyah Boston are taking well-deserved recovery time, Hull didn't waste a single day before getting back in the gym. This urgency speaks volumes about her understanding of where she stands in the pecking order, because the more time these players spend together, the better it is for everybody. And I mean that. The more time they're together, the better it is for every single player on that Indiana Fever team. The reality facing Hull is harsh but undeniable. With Sophie Cunningham now on the roster, her minutes are in serious jeopardy. Right now I'd project Hull getting maybe 5 minutes per game, and even that might be generous. The addition of Cunningham creates direct competition for her role, and while they're not identical players, they occupy the same positional territory in the rotation. One thing Hull does have going for her is defensive capability. She's a better perimeter defender than Cunningham, but is that enough to secure meaningful minutes when Cunningham brings more offensive firepower? This is precisely why these early workouts are so crucial. Hull needs to show expanded offensive capabilities if she wants to stay relevant in this rotation. The intensity of these workouts seems to have caught Stephanie White completely off guard. Sources close to the team report that White was stunned by the level of communication and chemistry already developing between Clark and Hull. This wasn't just two players casually getting shots up. This was deliberate, purposeful training with game-specific scenarios. What's particularly fascinating is how Caitlin Clark continues to set the standard for this entire organization. While other stars around the league are taking extended breaks, Clark's approach remains relentless. She was spotted working out at the newssport gym in New York while attending her boyfriend Connor McCaffrey's Butler coaching game. Before attending a Chiefs game with Taylor Swift, she managed to fit in a morning workout session. This work ethic isn't just impressive, it's borderline obsessive. There's a comment online that perfectly captures this mentality. They convinced Caitlin's homeless and she lives in the gym. While funny, it highlights something serious about her approach. This level of dedication becomes contagious within an organization, creating an unspoken standard that others feel compelled to match. That's exactly what we're seeing with Hull. She's clearly recognized that her WNBA survival depends on matching Clark's intensity. The footage shows Hull working on catch-and-shoot scenarios specifically designed to complement Clark's passing abilities. This isn't coincidental. Hull understands that her best path to minutes is becoming the perfect complementary piece to the team's centerpiece. Brianna Turner was also present at this workout, which adds another competitive layer to the dynamic. Turner is battling for backup center and power forward minutes with Damira Stantis, and while they offer different skill sets, roster spots are limited. The difference between 8 minutes per game and a DNP-CD often comes down to these off-season workouts and the impressions they make on the coaching staff. What's been particularly striking about these sessions is that most of the Fever roster is already accounted for in some capacity. Sophie Cunningham is back and working out. Brianna Turner is in the gym. Sydney Colson has arrived in Indiana. Dana Bonner is present, bringing her 17 years of veteran experience. The only players not physically present have legitimate reasons. Damira Stantis and Alyssa Smith are playing in Turkey, while Jaylen Brown is in Russia. This early cohesion gives the Fever a massive advantage over teams that won't assemble until closer to training camp. Chemistry isn't built overnight, and these extra weeks and months of working together could translate to several additional wins in a competitive Eastern Conference next season. Stephanie White's reaction to all this has been particularly revealing. After observing the Clark-Hull workout, White reportedly had to completely reconsider some of her offensive sets for next season. The ball movement and spacing between these two players showed such natural chemistry that White is now exploring ways to maximize these specific two-person actions within the larger team framework. What makes this all the more remarkable is that we're seeing this level of dedication from Hull despite what happened in Unrivaled. Let's not sugarcoat it. Hull struggled significantly with her shooting during that competition. Many players would have taken extended time off to mentally reset after such a performance. Instead, Hall is directly confronting her shooting struggles by putting in immediate work with the Fever's shooting coaches. This is where Clark's influence becomes even more evident. Despite being the team's unquestioned star, Clark has shown a willingness to work extensively with role players like Hall. The footage shows multiple sequences where Clark is actually talking Hall through specific footwork adjustments on catch-and-shoot opportunities. This isn't just about getting better individually. Clark is actively investing in making her teammates more effective. This type of leadership from Clark challenges the narrative that she's not a vocal leader. While she may not give rousing speeches, her communication during these workouts demonstrates a more practical, hands-on leadership style. She's showing not just telling and backing it all up with her own unmatched work ethic. What's particularly impressive about Clark's approach is the balance she's striking. These workouts don't appear overly intense in terms of physical exertion. They're focused on skill development, timing, and chemistry. Clark seems to understand that sustainability is key, especially for someone with her minutes load and usage rate. She's not running herself into the ground in October. She's maintaining her conditioning while focusing on specific technical improvements. The basketball intelligence on display in these sessions has apparently been what stunned Stephanie White the most. Sources indicate White was particularly impressed by how quickly Clark and Hall have developed nonverbal communication on cuts and screens. There's footage of a sequence where Hall sets a screen, slips it, and receives a no-look pass from Clark, the type of chemistry that typically takes months to develop. This isn't just two players getting shots up. This is deliberate work toward building a functional two-person game that can be deployed in specific game situations next season. Hall seems to have recognized that her path to minutes depends on becoming a reliable release valve when defenses overcommit to Clark. What we're also seeing is clear evidence that the Fever's culture is shifting in a positive direction. Last season was a mixed bag, tremendous individual performances but inconsistent team success. These early workouts suggest a more cohesive approach is forming, with players taking ownership of their development rather than waiting for coach-mandated sessions. Stephanie White apparently commented to staff that she hasn't seen this level of player-driven intensity since her time coaching the championship Fever teams with Tamika Catchings. That's remarkable praise and suggests the foundation being built could be more significant than many observers realize. This stands in stark contrast to some other organizations where off-season programs are more loosely structured. The level of commitment we're seeing from the Fever roster suggests an understanding that windows of opportunity in professional sports are fleeting. With Clark emerging as a generational talent and the roster gradually improving around her, there's recognition that the time to capitalize is now, not later. For Hall specifically, these workouts represent a fight for relevance. The harsh reality of professional sports is that rosters evolve and roles diminish. Hall is battling not just for minutes but for the opportunity to remain part of the league. That desperation shows in her intensity during these sessions. The technical aspects of what they're working on deserve attention as well. Hall has clearly identified specific weaknesses in her game, particularly her shooting consistency and defensive footwork, and is addressing them directly. The footage shows multiple defensive drills where Hall is working against male practice players to improve her lateral quickness. This self-awareness about weaknesses is something not all professional athletes possess. Many prefer to lean into existing strengths rather than confront limitations. Hall's willingness to tackle her deficiencies head-on suggests a maturity that could extend her career if she can translate these workouts into game performance. The competitive dynamic developing between Hall and Cunningham will be fascinating to watch. While their teammates working toward collective success, they're also fighting for largely the same minutes. How they navigate this tension while maintaining team cohesion will be a significant subplot for the Fever next season. What's particularly noteworthy about Clark's approach is that she's not just working on her individual skills. She's actively building chemistry with teammates across different positional groups. There's footage of her running pick-and-roll sequences with Brianna Turner, developing timing with Hull on off-ball actions, and even working on high-low entry passes with the posts. This comprehensive approach demonstrates a sophisticated understanding of what drives team success. Individual brilliance can win regular season games, but championship teams require cohesive units where players intimately understand each other's tendencies and preferences. Stephanie White's stunned reaction seems partly attributable to the level of detail in these workouts. Sources indicate White was particularly impressed by Clark's communication during specific actions, pointing out defensive rotations, suggesting counters, and actively coaching teammates during sequences. This level of basketball intelligence is rare for players so early in their careers. For Hull, the chemistry she's developing with Clark could literally save her career. The reality of WNBA roster construction means that players who can effectively complement stars have tremendous value, even with limited individual production. If Hull can establish herself as someone who maximizes Clark's effectiveness when they share the court, her roster spot becomes much more secure. The timing of these workouts is also significant within the larger WNBA context. As the league's popularity explodes and resources improve, the standard for professional dedication rises accordingly. The days of treating the WNBA as a part-time endeavor are rapidly disappearing. With with year-round commitment becoming the expectation rather than the exception. Hall's immediate return to training reflects this evolving reality. She understands that maintaining a WNBA roster spot now requires full-time dedication, not just in-season focus. This represents a significant shift in the professional women's basketball landscape. What's particularly notable is how these workouts contrast with Hall's performance in Unrivaled. She experienced significant shooting struggles during that competition, which might have damaged her confidence. Instead, she's confronting those issues directly, working extensively on catch-and-shoot scenarios with Clark's pinpoint passing setting her up for success. The strategic elements of these sessions reveal a sophisticated understanding of how the Fever need to evolve. Last season, their offense often became stagnant and predictable, especially when defenses keyed in on Clark. These workouts show deliberate attention to developing secondary actions and counters when the primary options are denied. This level of tactical sophistication in off-season workouts is rare and speaks to the basketball intelligence of both players. They're not just maintaining conditioning or working on isolated skills, they're building a functional system that addresses specific weaknesses identified from last season. Stephanie White's response to all this has reportedly included accelerating some of her off-season planning. Seeing the chemistry developing between Clark and Hall has apparently inspired her to reimagine certain offensive sets to maximize their budding two-person game. This represents a coach willing to adapt plans based on emergent player chemistry rather than rigidly adhering to predetermined systems. For Hull, this opportunity is particularly precious given her draft position and expectations. Selected with the 6th overall pick in 2022, her career trajectory hasn't matched those expectations. These workouts represent perhaps her final opportunity to prove she belongs at this level, especially with increased competition for wing minutes. What's clear from all this is that the Fever organization is entering a new phase of development. Last season was about establishing foundational pieces and adjusting to Clark's unique talents. This offseason appears focused on developing the complementary elements that transform individual brilliance into team success. The presence of multiple players in these voluntary sessions suggests a collective understanding of what's at stake. The Eastern Conference continues to improve, and maintaining last season's progress will require significant internal development. These workouts demonstrate an understanding that waiting until training camp to build chemistry would put them at a competitive disadvantage. For Clark specifically, these sessions reveal a maturity beyond her years. Despite her already established star status, she's approaching these workouts with the hunger of someone still fighting for recognition. This mindset prevents complacency and establishes a standard for the entire organization. The footage of Clark and Hull working together shows significant improvement in their timing and spacing compared to early last season. The hesitation that sometimes characterized their interactions has been replaced by fluid movement and anticipation. This development suggests meaningful growth is occurring even in these early off-season sessions. What Stephanie White appears most stunned by is how quickly this chemistry is developing. Sources close to the team indicate that White had anticipated needing significant practice time next season to build the level of connection she's already witnessing. This accelerated timeline could allow for more advanced tactical implementation earlier in the season. Don't miss our upcoming exclusive breakdown of exactly how these training sessions will translate to on-court success.